Susie Carmichael is a character who we can say without a doubt has been through a lot. Between the original run of Rugrats, All Grown Up, and the multiple movies, it goes without saying that we've seen her grow so much, and in hindsight, she's a character who symbolizes a lot of really positive things. She symbolizes not being afraid to shine as bright as you can in a world built to dull your shine. She symbolizes the importance of family and knowing how history shaped your family tree. And in a lot of ways, she symbolizes hope. Hope for a better tomorrow. Whereas characters like Angelica would learn life lessons the hard way in episodes that typically ended with her getting in massive trouble, or characters like Chucky would have to learn life lessons by attempting to overcome massive fears in episodes that sometimes ended with him still being afraid of what had him scared in the first place. Susie was a character who, sure, would have to go through trials and tribulations to learn the life lesson being portrayed, but by the end, usually she would learn the valuable lesson and she could move forward positively. Having learned from the experience and not really having to face any huge punishment or hold on to some massive lingering emotional baggage from what she went through. For me, that's one of the biggest things that I appreciate about Susie and what led to her being one of my favorite characters from the start. She's the kind of person who can recognize when she's wrong, apologize like she means it, and move forward in a positive direction. We've seen this in her character many times across many episodes and even multiple different shows. What's really interesting for me in particular is that I recently had an epiphany about Susie. I didn't realize it until now, but through my videos, I've kind of been building a timeline of important moments in Susie's life as we saw it across Rugrats and All Grown Up. We've checked out the episode that introduced us to Susie. We've done a deep dive into an episode where she severely did Angelica wrong. We saw an episode where she was there for Angelica during one of her saddest moments. We've analyzed the Kwanzaa special that gave us a huge look into her family history, and most recently, we dissected an episode where Susie was targeted and taken advantage of by someone who was an absolute wolf in sheep's clothing. Through all of this, it's really clear that we can come to the conclusion that Susie is a true gem of a character. Even through her darkest days, she still has the ability to keep herself going and not forget about who she is and what she stands for. However, today, on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're going to check out an episode that would serve as not only a monumental, life-changing moment for Susie, but also a really crucial life lesson for nearly every single character in this show. An episode that shows front and center the fact that Susie Carmichael is going places. But before she can even step one foot onto that stage, she, her friends, and their mothers have to face one of the biggest challenges of growing up and raising teenagers. We're diving into an episode that comes across as yet another simple tale about a road trip gone wrong, when in all reality, it's a deep story about control, freedom, and letting go. We're checking out none other than the Season 4 episode of All Grown Up, RV Having Fun Yet? As this episode starts out, we see Tommy getting dropped off at the mall by his mother while he squirms in the back seat, wishing she would drop him off around the corner. Dee Dee insists, however, that she drop him off right in front of the mall, even going as far as opening his door for him to let him out.
I could have let myself out.
Please, you want to look your best for your girlfriend, don't you?
Mom!
There's Rachel now.
Bye, Mom!
Don't forget Susie's party after. kiss? Hey, Tommy. New look?
From there, we fast forward to Susie's party, which is taking place at the Java Lava. We learn that everyone is gathered to celebrate Susie being selected by the American Cheese Council to sing in front of everybody at the Gracie's Day Parade in New York City, recognizing how massive of an opportunity that this is for her. She is just beyond hyped, and she still can't believe that she's been given this chance.
Did you know cheese represents 0.02% of our gross national product?
No.
Really?
Fascinating.
Did you know that, Angelica? I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. I was just admiring my cuticles. Aren't they lovely?
You did that on purpose.
Did what?
As Susie cleans up the mess that Angelica made all over her, she tells everyone about how badly she wishes they could all come with her to New York City to cheer her on. At this point, Angelica chimes up yet again, and it all begins to make sense as she says how great that this would be because it would soften the blow of her narrowly losing out on this opportunity to Susie. But when Susie points out that Angelica didn't even make it past the first audition, she gets angry and spills another drink for Susie to clean up.
Might as well forget New York. No way that's happening.
Take the kids to New York City?
Why not? We're not using the plane tickets the parade gave us.
But it still wouldn't cover all of us going.
What if it was just the moms and kids? According to the new Lipschitz book, Tweens from Angel to Enemy, this could be our last chance to get close to our adorable children before they turn into sulking, blood-sucking ciphers.
At the realization that it's meant to be a bonding experience, Betty suggests that they make it a road trip instead of flying so that they can see the country with their kids along the way. All of the moms agree that this is an excellent idea, and when they go over to announce the news to their kids, they all begin to cheer, completely stoked that they get to go to New York together. Just then, Tommy walks through the door and asks why everybody's cheering.
What's going on?
We're all going to see the Gracie Day Parade.
No way. That's wicked awesome. So how are we getting there? First class airfare?
Staying at Swanky Hotels?
Better. We're taking an RV.
You've got to be kidding. Just you and your mothers for a whole week.
Wicked.
Cheese!
Just like that, we cut to an RV lot where the gang is checking out a super high-end luxury RV packed with all of the latest features, including a spa, all sorts of electronics, and super comfy Murphy beds. While everyone explores the fancy new RV, up in the front seats sit Angelica and Dill talking about the trip.
You know, I'm kind of surprised you wanted to come on this trip. But with Susie getting so much nationally televised FaceTime and you still being basically, nobody.
Please, Dill. Susie is my friend, and I'd feel terrible if something awful prevented her from performing in the parade. Oh. I thought you were... Never mind.
As Betty picks Charlotte up off the ground, she says that they have to get going because they're going to be up extra early to start their trip. Just like that, we cut to the next morning where the sun is barely even up and all the kids have just freshly rolled out of bed while their moms are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. They all wait for Betty to arrive with the RV. Meanwhile, nearby, Tommy is saying bye to his girlfriend.
I'll miss you.
Me too.
Did you go to the little boy's room? We're leaving.
Wow.
Did you see that? Did you? Oh, she kissed him on the mouth and everything.
Chucky talks about how he's more than a whole year older than Tommy, but he's still never kissed a girl. Feeling bummed out by it, he pouts, saying that he likely never will, but Phil tries to cheer him up, saying that it's a huge country and that there are plenty of fish in the sea. As Chucky starts to feel better about it, we hear Betty rolling up in the RV, which is drastically different than the one that they were checking out yesterday. This rust bucket drops nuts, bolts, and hubcaps as Betty simply pulls it into the driveway. She can't even get the window to roll down properly without fighting with it for a solid minute and a half and eventually forcing it down. They ask her what happened to the fancy Cascade Supreme, but she says that it sold out.
Besides, I got twice the size for half the price. Come on in. Oh, and don't worry about that moldy bathing suit smell. Chill air out.
Well, it is Ruby.
Yeah, it'll still be fun. Hey, guys, did you see this?
I am Crud?
We see the road trip get underway as Betty drives the massive RV through completely packed bumper-to-bumper traffic. Dee Dee voices how she doesn't want to miss a single cultural highlight this whole trip because in her mind, thanks to Lipschitz, this is their last opportunity to bond with their kids before they completely turn on them. Betty doesn't sweat it, saying she can finish the drive across the country in no time thanks to her special blend of coffee, Betty Blast, one sip of which gets her completely wired. The whole RV is alive with activity as Lil vows to bounce a soccer ball and keep it in the air across the entire country to get into the Book of World Records. Her friends play cards, and Kira loses the truck stop burrito that she ate for lunch.
I wish we had that RV with a plasma screen and 600 channels of satellite TV. The moms wouldn't let us watch it anyway. Remember the Lipschitz rule. No electronic devices, no cell phones, computer games, nothing but long stretches of open road to numb our minds.
Dill says that they're all just a bunch of sticks in the mud for not seeing how great that this trip is, highlighting that they're currently passing through the home of UFO crashes, nuclear test sites, and alien bodies hidden in government hangars. However, the rest of the kids don't seem to share his excitement for what he deems the freaky capital of the freaky world, with the exception of Tommy, who at least recognizes the fact that he's getting really down about this trip before it's even truly underway.
Hey, look what I pulled off the net. The 100 most up-chuckingest thrill rides in America?
And we'll be passing at least half of them. Ah!
Okay, everybody, first stop.
What is it, Mom? Crazy canyons?
Whiplash Willows? Even better. Welcome to Clifford, California, onion capital of the West.
Everyone sits through the tour, crying their eyes out from the sheer amount of onions here and due to boredom. Eventually, after Dee Dee causes a giant mess of onions, they end up leaving. On the way out, though, a girl in the parking lot catches Chucky's attention.
Watch the Finster magic at work. Hi.
Hi.
Have you been eating onions? Ow.
After a quick picture in front of the world's biggest onion, they continue on their way, stopping next at the world's widest Christmas tree, which, oddly enough, is seemingly the only tree of its kind in the middle of the desert. Yet again, Dee Dee causes nothing but chaos as she makes a mess of the tree, which was apparently hanging on by just a single thread. Meanwhile, not too far away, Angelica and Susie's mothers talk on their way back to the RV.
Isn't it wonderful how well our girls have been getting along?
I know. Angelica hasn't shown one hint of jealousy about the parade.
Hey, Susie, you locked the door. Susie?
Later on, we see everyone, including Angelica, leaving their next attraction, the world's biggest ball of string. Tommy spies a nearby bungee jumping attraction, but when he asks his mom about doing that, she says that he'll hurt himself. Unfortunately, though, they're in for an even bigger world of hurt, as it turns out that Dee Dee had somehow ended up with the end of the world's biggest ball of string stuck to her foot, and it got stuck in the door of the RV before they started driving off.
Oh no! Oh no! No! Not that!
Later that night, we see the family all pulled off at a rest stop getting some sleep. The kids all have a tent pitched outside of the RV as they sit inside talking about how this trip is officially a bust. They're feeling trapped and like they're only able to do the things that their mothers want to do without the ability to even give any valid input for a second.
When do we get to do what we want to do? Snake skin, paws and tails, squirrel bones. What is that? That's my collection. I'm so bored of exploring my interest as a budding naturalist. Or chef. Ugh. What is it with moms anyway? Why do they have to be all over us all the time?
Yeah, what's with all these photographs?
They all continue to vent about their parents as Tommy wishes that his mom could finally realize that he's growing up. Everyone echoes the sentiment except for Dill, who says that he enjoys the babying. Just then, Kimmy comes to the tent saying that she was at the bathrooms when this dog ran up to her. She says that she went to every single camp, but nobody there knows this poor little guy. Thinking that he was abandoned, she decides to sneak him into their tent, knowing good and well that her mom is going to say no to keeping him. Just like that, they all lay down and get comfy.
One good thing, we're out here in the fresh air and not stuck in the crudinator. Yep.
You said it.
You bet.
The next morning, Betty wakes up bright and early to find the dog that Kimmy let into the RV completely destroying everything as it searches for food. It even ends up nearly attacking Phil over his bag full of roadkill. They end up tying the dog up in the RV so that it can't get far as they continue on their way, slightly behind schedule. Dee Dee shows them the map of everywhere that they plan to stop today as Betty stresses that they only have time to stop at each place for 6 minutes before they have to speed off to the next. We then get a nice montage of them going from monument to monument when, eventually, they end up at the Grand Canyon. Dee Dee tries talking to Tommy about how amazing it is, but sadly, he isn't interested whatsoever. Meanwhile, Kimmy struggles to keep her new dog calm.
Kimmy, can you try to control that stinky little mongrel? It's not my fault if Phil didn't carry around his bag of death. Ow! Whoa! I love this movie!
Movie? Dee Dee? I thought the kids weren't supposed to zone out on this trip.
Tommy?
Tommy tries to explain that he downloaded a movie because he needed something to get his mind off of leaving his girlfriend behind for this trip, but his mom isn't having any of it. Things reach her ears as the arguing gets out of hand. Kira barfs again, which leads to Charlotte getting angry at Betty, telling her that she's picking where they eat from now on. Meanwhile, as Susie tries to calm everyone down, reminding them what this whole trip is about, Angelica gets mad at her, saying that she's just trying to take the spotlight more than she already has it.
And it was about us moms getting closer to you guys.
Well, I'm sick of getting close. I'm sick of being told what to do. And I'm sick of having a mom.
Maybe we should be going.
They all leave, but of course not without Dee Dee causing her routine disaster on the way out. Later that night, We see all of the kids gathered around the fire while Dill talks to Tommy about what he said to their mom. Tommy tells him that he'll get it when he's older, but Dill refuses, saying that he'll never understand not loving and respecting his own mother. Just then, though, some random dude approaches, interrupting their conversation.
Hey, you guys going to see the Curtain of Tears tonight? I'm trying to catch a ride.
Curtain of Tears? What's that?
Oh, man! You never heard of it? Story is, this Indian princess, Sowanami, ditched out on some bogus dude her dad wanted her to marry. So her tribe left her behind to starve to death on these red rocks not too far from here.
Whoa, talk about harsh.
He continues to explain that she cried so many tears that a geyser formed where she stood, and now every year on this very night at midnight, you can see her rise from the geyser as it erupts. As the guy finishes the story, he just kind of walks off, leaving all of the kids hyped to go see this potential apparition. Sadly, though, they all agree that there is no way that their moms are gonna let them go out into the desert at night to see this geyser.
We could always sneak out after they've gone to sleep.
Sneak out? What for?
To see a real live dead Indian princess out in the desert.
Sounds epic. But I don't know if it's such a good idea. I gotta sing in New York in 4 days, and I don't even have my song down yet.
Oh, maybe Susie's right. We don't even know how to get there.
Just then, all of their moms come out of the RV, saying that they want to apologize for not listening to what they wanted to do. In order to make up for it, they've decided to take them to an authentic southwestern fiesta that's going on not too far away. And at that, we cut over to the fiesta, where a mariachi band is playing on stage, and all of the moms are just having a blast.
Oh, that's it. We have to get away from our moms.
Much later, while all of the adults are sleeping, we see the teenagers stuffing their sleeping bags with clothes to make them look full as they all go wandering out into the desert. They keep walking and walking, thinking that they might have been duped. However, it isn't long until, over a ridge, they spy a group of people gathered around a fire and celebrating. Back at the RV, however, we see Betty waking up in the middle of the night. She looks out the window and notices that the roads are completely clear without a single car in sight. On that note, she takes it as the perfect opportunity to put in some miles. The doggo that Kimmy picked up hops out of the back of the window while the RV speeds off into the night. Back over at the gathering, the kids are all having a blast getting some social time in.
Which headgear do they give you? The G-Force Twister or the Mandible Mangler?
Mandible Mangler.
Oh, me too. Nice night.
Yeah.
After having an excellent time, the kids all find themselves walking back to the RV raving about how great of a night it was. However, their joy comes to a grinding halt when they realize that the RV isn't where it was when they left. Everyone begins to panic, not knowing what to do, but Susie does her best to keep everybody calm, saying that they just need to hike over to the ranger station so that they can get some help. After everyone walks away, though, it's evident that Susie herself is very nervous about what happens from here. Meanwhile, states away in Brunswick, Missouri, Betty finally pulls the RV to a stop at the tourist site of the world's largest pecan.
Yep. While you lazy heads were sawing Z's, I covered almost 600 miles. And you know what? I could do another 1,000.
Dee Dee and the rest of the moms head back to wake up the kids. Unfortunately, though, they are completely shocked to find that all of their children are missing. Betty wakes up from their screams, forgetting that she got them all the way to Missouri, to the news that the kids are all the way back in New Mexico. Of course, she marches right up to the driver's seat, telling them to brew her a cup of joe, but unfortunately, the RV won't even turn over at this point.
I'm sorry, Susie. I know you worked really hard to sing in this parade.
Don't sweat it, Tommy. We still got 3 days to get to New York. I'm not worried.
Just then, a ranger comes in with some sandwiches for them to eat, saying that he has his guys out searching for their mothers and the RV, when suddenly the phone rings. The ranger answers it, and we find out that it's none other than Tommy's mom, who is incredibly relieved to hear that they're all okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Mom. Where are you? They're in Brunswick, Missouri.
Home of the world's largest pecan?
Oh, when are you coming back for us? A couple of days. We'll never make it to New York in time for the parade.
Wow. Sorry, Susie. Yeah, tough break.
The ranger says that he's going to take them to stay with his family because he's got to head out of town for a tribal meeting. However, Tommy says that they can't do that because they have to get Susie to New York so she can sing in the parade. The ranger says that the farthest he'd be able to take them is Denver.
Mom?
I heard, and we're sorry, but we can't let you travel hundreds of miles alone.
You've got to. I can't let Susie down. I can handle this. Thanks.
All right.
Yes!
Way to go, Tommy!
You're gonna make it, Susie.
The ranger ends up giving the kids a ride to his meeting, and they stop to enjoy it for a little while, watching everybody dance. Not long after, though, the ranger shows back up, giving them some snowsuits and telling them that the only ride he has to Denver is by dog sled because every road that leads there is completely snowed in. Just like that, we see all of them having a blast flying down the powder-covered hills, heading towards Denver, when the pouch that Tommy wears breaks and gets left behind, and along with it, the piece of paper that had the credit card number that their parents gave them to get tickets to Missouri once they make it to Denver.
I'm beginning to think letting the kids travel hundreds of miles alone wasn't such a hot idea.
Me too. My Angelica may seem tough, but she's just a scared little girl with an inflated sense of self-entitlement. What do you think, Dee Dee?
I think Tommy was right and Lipschitz was wrong. Sometimes you've got to give your kids space. If we did our job right, we've raised bright, capable children.
Just then, we cut back to Tommy getting chewed out by Angelica for losing the credit card number, and he says that the paper must have fallen out while they were sledding. He then pulls out a map that he got, showing that they just need to get across Kansas and then they'll be in Missouri, making it seem like getting across an entire state is an easy feat. And at that, ever the realist, Angelica says that they should probably just give up.
We have no money, no cell phone, and our moms are hundreds of miles from here. Face it, Susie's shot at the big time is history.
No, I'm not giving up. I have an idea.
Next thing you know, we see the kids up in the sky on a hot air balloon flying above the state of Kansas, while little do they know, the dog that they picked up a few states ago is following them from down below. Eventually, they end up landing and Tommy secures them a ride to a nearby town where they can hopefully call their parents to get the credit card number again. Much to Tommy's disappointment, however, the town is Amish and doesn't have phones or even electricity.
What kind of nightmare is this?
Y'all booger taint.
Ja, Mother took a ride in the car to Brunswick.
Brunswick, big pecan.
Flossie in the black apron dress make bed to the barn.
Ja, after you throw some cows over the fence, some hay.
You understood all that?
Ja, don't be shushly.
Later that night, we see everyone laying down in the barn while Tommy hears the words he said to his mom echoing in his mind, reminding him of how he told her that he's sick of having her in his life. Everyone ends up falling asleep, and super early the next morning, they wake up to Tommy running into the barn, saying that he got them a ride to Brunswick. Next thing you know, we see the group on a horse-drawn carriage being driven by the man from the shop.
rooster, is it? I'll be sitting back here.
You said you'd do it and you did, Tommy. Thanks.
Unfortunately, the carriage lost a wheel and the group is stuck waiting until it's fixed. As Lil continues bouncing her ball, her brother is nearby, still collecting roadkill. All of a sudden, though, we hear a booming roar as a bear appears, wanting Phil's backpack full of dead animals.
Phil, he wants your collection! Give it to him! Pumpkin!
Eventually, the bear ends up walking off in fear as the dog stands triumphant. Kimmy ends up picking him up and giving him praise, and they quickly learn that this whole time, the dog was just chasing after Phil's backpack as he helps himself to it, claiming one of the skeletons inside. From there, we see the group walking in the middle of nowhere, attempting to follow directions that the Amish man gave them, yet struggling to do so. They start to get cold, tired, and thirsty as things begin to look dire, and Tommy begins to wonder what all of their moms are up to right now.
I bet if my mom was here, she'd have something to eat. They always have something to eat when you're hungry. Or a sweatshirt if you're cold. It's the purses. Moms are like pack mules of love.
Guys ever catch your mom sneaking into your room at night just to watch you sleep?
Oh, yeah.
It's creepy, but, like, in a good way.
You guys ever think what it'd be like not having a mom? Been there, done that.
At that, Tommy begins apologizing to his friends, saying that this is all his fault because he was the one who had something to prove to his mom. And just when he thinks it couldn't get any worse, it starts pouring down rain, leaving all of them crying their eyes out and wishing that they had their moms there to help them. Right when things start to look their worst, though, they hear the magical sound of the RV horn as it approaches on the nearby highway.
Oh, Mom, I missed you. Mwah! Tommy, I'm so proud of you. Look how far you came.
Huh, no big D.
With everybody reunited finally, Betty says that they need to get rolling if they're going to make it to New York on time. They all load into the RV, never feeling more thankful to be on it. But as Betty begins to drive, Pumpkin the dog walks into the road right in front of the RV, causing Betty to swerve and crash head on into a pole. We see Betty out of the RV using an emergency call box to phone for help. However, with it being the day before Thanksgiving, they sadly aren't able to get help out there until later tonight. She breaks the bad news to everyone, telling Susie that it doesn't look like they're gonna make it on time.
I'm sorry, honey. Maybe you can get in the parade next year.
But we worked so hard to get here. We came so close. I memorized 357 kinds of cheeses. What are you people, quitters? I didn't ride dog sleds, balloons, and live without a blow dryer for 3 days to give up now.
Next thing you know, we see a guy roll up in a big box truck as Angelica forces him to stop and demands that he take them to New York. As it turns out, that truck is from none other than their first stop, Clifford, California, the onion capital of the West. They all load into the truck, and we get a montage of them crossing multiple states until finally they find themselves in New York, arriving for Susie to check in.
After everything you did to get here, especially riding in an onion truck for 14 hours, the parade committee wanted to reward you with special luxury suites. On us.
The group makes their way up to their suite as everybody around them scoffs at the stench of onions that's radiating off of every single one of them. Later that night, we see everyone enjoying themselves, thankfully clean of the scent of onions, when Susie approaches Angelica.
I just wanted to say thank you. You didn't have to do what you did, and, well, it was amazingly out of character. Well, I can top it. You're welcome. One question. Why? Because I know that if I ever got a chance to sing some cheesy song on national television for hundreds of millions of people around the world, I'd want you to have my back. Hundreds of millions?
We fast forward to the day of the parade as Tommy and his friends watch all of the amazing floats drive by. Not far off, Chucky sits talking with Phil, who is just in awe about the fact that across the entire United States, they couldn't find one single girl who wanted to kiss him.
Oh, don't feel so bad, Phil. I've decided it's not that important. I mean, after all the exciting stuff we've done the last couple of days, kissing a girl just doesn't seem like that big a deal anymore.
From there, we see the cheese float approaching, covered with people dressed up in cheese costumes. Meanwhile, Susie leads the stage, dressed up as a mouse. As the float passes by, she dedicates her song to Tommy, and she begins serenading everyone with her song about cheese.
The Italians call it formaggio, and France they say fromage. But give me ricotta from Duluth, Minnesota, and all the rest is garbage. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking that plastic yellow stuff, but there's just more cheese than American cheese in the country that I love.
Everybody cheers for Susie, and of course, Dee Dee just has to cause one final accident. She knocks over a garbage can, which just causes the most tragic chain of events. An entertainer on stilts almost trips, causing a woman balancing on a ball to fall, and in the ensuing chain reaction, the people holding the parade balloons accidentally let them go, causing them to float off into space. Even worse than that, however, is what happens to Lil.
One, two, three.
Take one down, pass it around.
Now, this episode was huge, and I, for one, really appreciate the fact that it came loaded with so many different aspects as it relates to all of the characters, not just Susie. This one completely revolved around her, considering it was highlighting a moment where she was truly given the spotlight and finally had the opportunity to get attention on a national level. However, despite her being the focal point, every other teenager here also had their own individual things going on, and the end result of it was plentiful opportunities open to present many valuable life lessons along the way. All Grown Up, and of course the original Rugrats, always did an excellent job of providing us with an important moral to the story. However, the massive two-part episodes like this one would be some of the best in the series because they really had the opportunity to shine extra bright in that department. Outside of Susie's quest to sing in a national spotlight, we would see Tommy struggling to prove himself while battling with his feelings about his mother, Chucky struggling with his development and feeling like he's behind his peers, Phil backing him up, Lil with her soccer ball literally throughout the whole episode, Kimmy with the dog that she found and snuck into the RV, Angelica's ongoing battle with her jealousy, Dill standing up for his mom when Tommy was ragging on her. The thing is, though, this one isn't just simple, straightforward, non-stop life lessons. Of course, we saw the trials and tribulations, but there were also a few things along the way that kind of had me questioning. Like, right out the gate, taking it from the top, the fact that all of a sudden in this episode, Tommy has a girlfriend. Like, the episode that preceded this one had absolutely nothing to do with Tommy having any romantic feelings for a girl or anything like that. And come to think about it, it was actually kind of rare that we would see Tommy having any romantic story arcs in this show. That was more of Chucky's cup of tea, as we would see him many times over seemingly struggle with a revolving door of girls that he had crushes on, but was usually too shy to approach. Tommy, on the other hand, having a girlfriend all of a sudden just feels forced and very out of left field. There's no introduction to her before this episode or any building up to them even becoming friends or anything. Just like all of a sudden she's here and we're just supposed to accept that they're in a relationship. Our main character, who is pretty well fleshed out, and a random girl who we don't even have any context on or know the first thing about. I don't know, it just feels like a very odd storytelling choice on behalf of the show's writers, and overall a missed opportunity, but with that being said, this show was chock full of those. On top of that though, anyone else think it was just a little bit weird that Chucky cared so much that Tommy kissed his girlfriend when Chucky himself has never kissed anyone? Like, it's totally understandable that at that age, a lot of kids have a tendency to compare themselves developmentally and socially to everyone else around them. But like, even with that considered, it just felt kind of odd and mildly out of character that Chucky was so jealous about this. It was very weirdly specific to Tommy too. I don't think we've ever seen Phil, Lil, Kimmy, or even Susie or Angelica kiss anyone in this show, but that didn't matter to Chucky because for some reason he's very fixated on comparing himself to Tommy. His whole story arc here was so focused on him feeling like he wasn't good enough because he hadn't kissed a girl before, when in all reality, he likely isn't the only one of his friends who hasn't kissed anyone. With that being said, though this story arc for Chucky and what he had going on was odd and a bit out of character, there's more than one valuable life lesson here that's presented in a very important way. First of all, comparison is the thief of joy. Chucky is so worried about what he hasn't done and so busy comparing himself to others that he fails to enjoy the moment and, more importantly, acknowledge the things he has done that others likely haven't, or just in general his own value as a guy. Especially comparing yourself to your own best friend of all people. That right there is just asking for pure disaster through and through. On top of that though, Chucky also learned the valuable lesson that when you stop searching actively for the thing that you desire so badly, it has a tendency to drop itself in your lap when you least expect it. When he stopped caring and just accepted the fact that it's okay and it'll happen when it happens, a girl walks right up to him and ends up kissing him. He didn't have to make a fool of himself like he had so many other times in this episode. He didn't have to chase some stranger and make himself seem cool. He just had to stop searching, and next thing you know, he found himself receiving what he had hoped for all along. Granted, I don't recommend randomly walking up, not saying a word, and kissing absolute strangers, because the human mouth is a nasty place, mono exists, and most of all, at least ask for consent first. But still, the fact stands strong with how they portrayed it. When you stop stressing about it and quit searching non-stop like an obsessed maniac, the thing that you've been looking for will likely present itself in time. Moving on from there, one thing that certainly wasn't surprising in this episode was just how much of a massive jerk that Angelica was. Like we talked about before, Susie is the kind of friend that despite their storied history of Angelica being terrible, she doesn't allow that to stop her from being there for her friend during her darkest days. Specifically when she was being targeted by a popular bully that wanted to ruin her social life. However, Angelica struggles to even show a tiny bit of support for Susie through this humongous opportunity because she's too busy being salty that it wasn't her who was picked, even though she wasn't even able to get past the first audition. I mean, if you saw my last video about this show, you definitely heard Angelica's singing, and, well, to be blunt, it's the sonic equivalent of sprinting barefoot through a gymnasium full of Legos. At what point does Angelica stop and realize that it's okay for someone else to be better than her at something? I mean, the level of resentment that this girl harbors is just festering inside like a ball of negativity ready to burst. I'm honestly kind of flabbergasted. Barely even 5 minutes into the episode, and this little girl is hitting her own mother in the face with a heavy RV door because she thought it was going to hit Susie. Just let that sink in for a second. Angelica is so jealous that she straight up wants to hurt Susie. I mean, it's not surprising, but nevertheless, I'm willing to admit that it's baffling just how far this escalated from her typical antics that we would see in their childhood. On top of trying to hurt her, she even goes as far as trying to lock Susie in the bathroom stall, thinking that'll stop her from making it to New York. At that point, she's not even thinking things all the way through. It's just an almost Looney Tunes-esque shenanigan-filled quest to thwart Susie where it repeatedly backfires on Angelica, mostly due to her blind rage. Despite that though, it does need to be noted that by the end of it all, after endless jealousy and resentment, Angelica of all people was the one who single-handedly was responsible for getting Susie to New York. While everyone deemed themselves down and out, Angelica was dead set on not giving up. What it really boils down to is the fact that Angelica got to the point where she was so fed up with the inconveniences of it all that she decided to be helpful instead of being an additional hindrance for everyone. She put all of that pent-up frustration and energy into something more productive than bringing one of her friends down, and as a result, she learned how much more valuable she comes across when she's trying to help instead of spitefully seeking revenge. At the end of it all, the big lesson that came through to her is that she can have her feelings of jealousy all day long. However, the way in which she chooses to act on them is the biggest deciding factor. Another thing that we need to talk about as it pertains to Angelica, though, would be the moment where the moms are all alone, and we hear Charlotte admit that though Angelica plays herself off as tough, she's actually just a scared little girl with an overinflated sense of self-entitlement. Now, first of all, not only was that super unexpected coming from Charlotte Pickles of all people, but furthermore, it just hit so hard. I don't think I have ever heard any parent in this show, or even the original Rugrats, assess their child in a more accurate way than this. She was completely spot on, and on one hand, it's breathtaking to realize that Charlotte can admit the truth about her daughter and the person that she's raised her to be, but on the other hand, this right here also told us that Charlotte is no stranger to Angelica's antics and the way that she treats people. If we're being honest, even going back to her childhood, we've seen Angelica full-blown disrespect people right in front of Charlotte, and she's either pretended not to see it or hear it, or excused the behavior, claiming it to be encouraged in an effort to build her confidence. However, this episode right here is the first time I can recall Charlotte acknowledging that her raising Angelica like that resulted in an overinflated sense of entitlement. It does make me wonder, though, how long ago Charlotte realized this, considering this show takes place about a decade in the future from the original Rugrats. Now, one thing that truly has me taken back by this episode is that all these years later, Dee Dee is still listening to Lipshitz's advice and hasn't realized that he's a total quack. He's been giving her crummy parenting advice for more than a decade now, and she's still buying into it just as much as ever. As far as Dr. Lipschitz goes, the short and the skinny of it is that he doesn't have kids, doesn't know anything about raising kids, and pretends that he does through inserting his opinions into books disguised as actual parenting tutorials. It is interesting to take in the progression of his work all of this time later, though. It was clear that in the late 80s and early 90s, this guy cashed in on the craze of new age parenting help books, and along the way acted like he knew what he was talking about from experience, with total disregard to whether or not these parents would catch on to it or look into his credentials and where all of his advice originates from. Then, as time would go on, he would continue to cash in on the people who followed his word as law, such as Dee Dee. But over time, he would begin to insert more and more of his opinions into his work. This is very evident to us in the way that his book about teenagers is called Tweens, From Angel to Enemy. Essentially, a poor excuse of a parenting tutorial that programs people to believe that their children are by default going to become, quote, sulking, blood-sucking ciphers. I mean, this plain as day is just this old man trauma dumping his resentment for teenagers into a book that's intended to turn their parents against them from the start. Like, I imagine at some point in time, a group of teenagers bullied Dr. Lipschitz, and this book is his way of hitting back at all teenagers for that group's actions. To be blatantly honest, there's no other way to put it than this guy is telling parents that there's no way to avoid their kids becoming their vicious, depressed, and impossible to decode enemies, and that right there is just messed up. I already had very little respect for Dr. Lipschitz, but this made what little I had turn into blatant disrespect. As far as Dee Dee goes, though, she certainly learned in this one how important it is to make your own parenting choices based on your own morals, thoughts, and instincts. As nice as other people's takes can be, someone else's words can't be the end-all be-all for how you raise your kids. In a sense, this was her, after a decade of worshipping the ground that this guy walks on, freeing herself of the chains that she put on herself as a mother at the advice of Dr. Lipschitz. After watching Dee Dee regurgitate this guy's nonsense for so many years, it makes me feel good to see her finally disavow him for once. As far as Tommy goes, Dee Dee also realized that he deserves this chance. He can want to have some independence and be able to make some of his own choices, all the while still being able to love his mom and enjoy some sentimental moments together. This one really showed her that by not letting him spread his wings and at least attempt to fly, she's causing him to build up resentment and stifling his growth more or less. In a way, this one serves as a coming-of-age story for Tommy in the sense that he had to conduct this whole trip to reunite his friends with their mothers. He coordinated a majority of their resources to get there, and as a result, he gained a lot of respect from his mom, proving that he is relatively capable. Though he wasn't able to complete the whole trip there, he was able to put a massive dent in their travels. With that in mind, we certainly have to bring up that terribly sad moment when all of these kids are out in the pouring rain wandering the desolate highway, and they realize that though they do enjoy being able to make their own choices, that doesn't negate the fact that they need their moms. They're literal children out wandering the country on their own. Of course they need them, and furthermore, it's okay for them to need their moms. They are kids after all. Whereas Dee Dee learned the importance of letting your kids spread their wings and allowing them to show their ability to be competent, yet at the same time, making sure you do everything you can to be prepared to swoop in and save them if they end up not being able to overcome the task that they're approaching, a majority of these kids learned that it's okay for two things to be true at the same time. You can need your parents and also need some space from them as well, and that's completely valid. They can want to explore the things that they want to see and attempt things on their own, all the while still loving their moms just as much as they did before. Of anything, that right there highlights even more the danger of Lipschitz spewing his nonsense. His twisting of these parents' view of their kids blurs their vision and inhibits their ability to realize these things due to preconceived notions that he's planted in their minds with his books. What's really funny to me, though, is how in direct contrast to the blatant nonsense falling out of that quack's mouth, Dill is a tween who embodies essentially the opposite of what Lipschitz warns of. Honestly, episodes like this really increase my appreciation for Dill. He's always trying to keep the peace and look at the positives, and that's a trait that often goes overlooked. He's the kind of guy who's just happy to be around, and wherever he is, he's always looking for small, cool things that he can hyperfixate on and enjoy while everybody else is doing their own thing. Dill's ability to look on the bright side is something that I appreciate and I admire 100%. And on top of that, he's the kind of kid who calls it like it is and isn't afraid to tell someone when they're being really uncool. Of anything, as far as Dill is concerned, in this episode he really symbolizes for me not being afraid to be your true, authentic self. Tommy was feeling a lot of big feelings about their mom, and when Dill was saying that he doesn't get it, Tommy says that he will when he's older. But to be honest, that right there sounds like some crap that Dr. Lipschitz would say. Dill isn't guaranteed to feel the same way about their mom as Tommy when he gets older. Of course, that right there ties into another important life lesson. Just because someone tells you something is going to happen or tries to convince you that you're supposed to be a certain way, doesn't mean that it has to be true. Regardless of who that person is, only you can shape your own self, and no one can make your decisions for you. Moving along from there, I definitely want to talk about how disturbing it was that Phil is collecting roadkill in his backpack, talking about how he's either a survivalist or a chef. It's kind of messed up, and nobody even really said anything bad about it or took any concern other than that it was smelly. Like, I know Phil isn't the one killing these animals, but the fact that he's carrying around pieces of them is arguably out there in a concerning way. It kind of makes you rethink everything that we've seen from him over these years. Is this just a continuation of his normal disgusting behavior? Or is this indication that he might have a bit of a problem? The weird roadkill side of things aside, however, I do appreciate Phil for the role that he played in this one as it pertains to his back and forth with Chucky. At the start, when Chucky was feeling down, Phil was there to attempt to build him up, encouraging him and telling him that across the United States, there's bound to be at least one girl who wants to kiss him. Admittedly, the better answer would have been to encourage him that being himself is the way to go, and that comparing himself to his best friend is just gonna make him feel bad. However, at least he tried. Phil was just trying to be a good friend, and that's yet again another important, albeit simple, life lesson. Friendship and being there for your buds when they're feeling down. As far as Phil's sister, on the other hand, though, her story was an interesting one because it was kind of like a subplot beneath a subplot. All throughout Susie trying to get to New York, Chucky struggling with girls, Tommy feeling smothered by his mother, and everything else that was going on, she was just in the background bouncing her ball non-stop, focused on getting into the book of world records. The most interesting part, though, is that despite it being kind of a buried plot going on behind the scenes, the lesson that it showed us was one of the most important of all. Lil put in all of this work, going all of this distance, consistently focusing on her soccer ball, while everyone else went about their days, just for the record to be completely taken away at the last second thanks to the millionth freak accident caused by Dee Dee. And what does she do about it? Well, at first she looked completely broken and like she was gonna lose it, but ultimately she shrugs it off, picks the ball back up, and starts over where she left off with a big smile on her face. This right here is one of the biggest yet most simplistic lessons in letting go that I've ever seen in a cartoon. Like, Frozen full-blown dedicated a whole song that was all over the radio to the concept of self-acceptance, and even that didn't hit anywhere near as hard as this subtle scene in a show that didn't even get a fraction of the views that Frozen did. It's one of those where the message hits so much harder when it's not shoved down your throat a million times. As a matter of fact, beating a dead horse with it is quite contradictory to the sentiment of letting go. Personally, I believe the fact that Lil let this massive upset be water off the duck's back is really a huge testament to how strong of a person that she is, all in all. Of course, we can't talk about strong people and not bring up Susie. Honestly, her ability to keep calm under pressure was really captivating in this one. There were multiple times where people were panicking or losing their mind when they were stranded in the middle of nowhere, and she was the one who was able to pull herself together and think of the sensible thing to do, making sure to save her panicked thoughts for when everyone is out of earshot. That last part, though, being the most crucial. When everyone is panicked and doesn't know what to do, and you're the only one who chimes in knowing the next steps to take, it's important to take those steps with confidence and save any worrying thoughts for when everyone who is freaking out is out of the range to hear you expressing those worries. The fact that Susie had the wherewithal to keep that in mind definitely says a lot about her. All in all, as far as Susie is concerned, she learned a big lesson in staying strong in the face of adversity. There were times in this episode where it felt like the entire world was working against her when it came to getting to New York. It was disaster after disaster after disaster, and with each passing disaster would come more hoops for them to jump through, and of course, it would push them to be more and more late. However, even in the face of everything seemingly working against her, she stayed strong up until the very end when it seemed like the run of bad luck had become insurmountable. At that point though, how can you blame her? Like, they overcame so many different barriers. They rode dog sleds through snow-covered hills to get this far. Yet their effort falls flat on its face thanks to a freak car accident. It just feels like one last massive spit in the face after everything that they've already been through, and at this point in the episode, I can't blame Susie for a second for losing her cool. She didn't deserve all this. With that in mind though, it does lead us to one final big lesson. The fact that sometimes things just happen for a reason. One of the biggest things that embodied that sentiment would be Kimmy and the role that she played in this episode. While everyone else had their own individual plots, hers would revolve around a simple dog. A dog who she found by chance, then tried to do the right thing and find his owner, but when he seemed to not have an owner, she took him in as her own, and she could have chosen not to. Or alternatively, someone could have lied and said that they were the owner so that they could get a free dog. But almost like fate, the dog took a liking to Kimmy, and she would end up taking it in and giving it some love. Then, as luck would have it, the dog would end up chasing them across the country for hundreds of miles, just to end up ultimately saving their lives from a bear attack. Again, sometimes things just happen for a reason. And in a way, I feel like this episode is a great way to give that sentiment some additional life and see it unfold firsthand. All things considered, this episode is an amazing one, and I feel like it makes for a perfect episode to take in after Susie sings the blues. Seeing her as a character go from being scammed by a fake talent scout to being given an actual opportunity to prove her talent on a national level really puts so much momentum behind the push that they gave her character, and I have such a fondness for that aspect of this show. Furthermore, this episode is one that really leans heavily into real-life struggles, and I feel like both kids and adults alike could benefit from watching an episode like this. This one truly highlights a real-life reflection of that battle between kids craving more freedom and parents having a hard time letting go. This kind of thing happens every single day, and honestly, it's a tough one where there's no true black and white clear-cut answer. It's not as simple as read this book or act this way and it'll all go perfectly. With that in mind, it kind of makes you rethink the whole RV aspect of this episode and what the actual vehicle itself represents. The hilariously broken RV with its rusted exterior, stinky interior, and just dropping nuts, bolts, and hubcaps as it drives down the highway. The more you think about it, the more it becomes a metaphor for the struggles of growing up and learning to trust kids with independence as you walk that tense line between protecting kids versus letting them go. The old rust bucket itself represents the often chaotic and usually unpredictable journey of growing up. The freedom that kids crave and the control that their parents have such a hard time letting go of. The moms want control over the trip, dictating where they go and when they go there, much like many parents dictate their own kids' lives. Of course, they have good intentions and are under the impression that they know best, but it's undeniable that their over-involvement leads them to problems, just like how being overprotective pushes kids to rebel. From there, of course, the kids ditching the RV and going out on their own is essentially saying that they don't want their hands held anymore. They want to explore, and they're struggling to do so with their moms worrying about them getting hurt and holding them back. However, they quickly realize the harsh, real-world truth that freedom comes with consequences and that being on your own isn't as easy as you might imagine it to be. All the while, as the kids are learning this lesson, their mothers are states away, struggling with the broken-down RV. This right here is massive symbolism for the fact that no matter how much planning or structure that they put on their children's lives, things are still going to go wrong at some point. This is the huge realization for them that no amount of hovering can prevent every single problem, even the most minor. Ultimately though, in the long run, they all made it. They got Susie to New York, and she was able to make it to the parade in time. This right here showed us point blank that letting your offspring explore and take risks doesn't inherently mean that they will fail. However, it does guarantee that they'll learn. The mothers themselves learn to trust and, in return, loosen their grip a bit, realizing that their children are more competent than they tend to give them credit for. As the story flows through the funnel, it ultimately boils down to this entire trip being a test in trust. It's not just a road trip disaster episode. It's a coming-of-age story wrapped in utter chaos and unfortunate moments. It's a beautiful lesson in knowing when to step back as a parent and knowing when to step into responsibility as a kid. But what do you guys think? Do you remember gaining so many life lessons from this episode as a kid? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. You already know, family. I have to give a massive shout out to my friends in the True 90s Kids tier across Patreon and YouTube memberships. You all rock so much, and I can't thank every single one of you enough for showing some love every month for my creative outlet. Your support makes a world of difference, and words could never say how much I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and stick around for another nostalgic walk down memory lane. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Peace.